Prior to the British Watch and Clockmakers exhibition in March this year, we've been touching base with some of the great and good of the industry who will be exhibiting at the show. Today, we are lucky enough to be joined by Simon and Richard, the founders of Escudo Watches. Now, we've already hooked up with the guys at the London World Time event, and we've been lucky enough as well to review the Seacrest dive watch. But this is the first time we've sat down for a formal chat. Also, we're very lucky to be joined today by Sophie, who is our editorial manager at WatchGecko. So, welcome everybody. Let's open up by telling us, please, guys, alternately, about your journey, your personal journey into the watch world.
It's been a long journey. It's been a long 4 years, hasn't it, Rich? 2020 was the year where it started. COVID hit businesses all around the world quite badly, and mine was hit at that time back in March, April. And I thought, I've got to follow a dream. I've got to go and do something that I'm passionate about. And I just one day, out of boredom, started sketching out watches, and one thing led to another. I contacted Richard within 2-3 weeks and said, "What do you think of this?" I don't think he believed in what I was doing at the time. And so another 2 weeks went by, 2-3 weeks, and then he got a bit better at the drawings, and he was like, "I think you've got something there." And then I started showing friends, family, and as time progressed, maybe a month or two later, Escudo, the name came about because of the Portuguese, the crest on the shirt. And I was watching Portugal-Spain play in a rerun. Ronaldo scored on a free kick, and I realised that I had the Escudo tattoo on my arm. And I immediately phoned Richard and said, "Hey, how about Escudo Watches?" And he's like, I think Escudo Watches is quite catchy. There's a meaning to it. It was the Portuguese currency and so forth. It means shield. I think you've got something. And it just went from there, didn't it? It went from strength to strength from there.
We were like babes in the wood. We were completely and utterly naive. We didn't know what on earth we were doing. It's fine drawing a watch, but where do you start? How do you start to make a watch? It was very, very interesting. Simon Googled watch consultants in the UK, and there is only one apparently, and that's a guy called David Brailsford who owns Garrick Watches. And we talked to him, and he said he'd give us a consultation, and so we agreed to his fees, and then away it went. And I have to say, it was absolutely marvellous in putting us in, sort of pointing us in the right direction. And it's just, we've made very, very few false steps because of him. It was, it's just, the only thing is we were completely naive about costs and time scale and everything else to do with it. And when we finally got the point of launching the watches, the first collection, we thought, that's it, we've done it, now they'll all sell. And of course, we then immediately realised it's actually that's the easy bit. The hard bit is building the brand and marketing it, and that's gone on now. But even then, we've been very, very lucky. We haven't made too many false steps, and we've been introduced to all sorts of incredible people. So it has been brilliant. I mean, we do count ourselves incredibly lucky to have got to where we are now in such a short space of time, really.
Yeah. It sounds wonderful. It sounds like I want to ask you if you've got any vacancies. When did moving on. When did you suddenly realise that this was suddenly a reality? I mean, I always imagine, luckily within our own organisation, we too are behind the creation of some watches. And when you suddenly put 300 meters onto a watch, you think, oh gosh, this has really got to work, hasn't it? And was there a point where it suddenly dawned on you were making a functional tool watch that had to do what it said on the tin?
Yeah, we knew that. I think right from the beginning, we had once we decided to do it, we had a vision of what we wanted to do in terms of, the whole Portuguese British thing is inspired by The fact that Simon's Portuguese but lives in England and I'm English but I live in Portugal, and we, Simon's my stepson, and we have a, it's like a real family business, and so and then we realised that because of Portugal's oldest alliance in the world with the UK, there was 670 years of history, and the inspiration of the Portuguese and the early British sailors all setting out and trying to discover the world with crap equipment and just sheer bravery and sheer naivety. They all set out and didn't even know which way they were going virtually. But I've been to Columbus had these ships in southern Spain in Andalusia, and to go on board those ships and have a look at the size of them and how primitive they were and how it is just unreal. And you just got to admire the skill and the fortitude of the early sailors and the early explorers, and they effectively were responsible for the start of globalization. So it gave us a really good feeling, being both British and Portuguese, that it's that there is a really proper backstory, not a sort of fake made up backstory, and we want to represent that journey that they made and the journey that we've made. And that's one of the reasons why our watches are inspired by a compass, because all the points point outwards. It's all about exploration, adventure, going out there, doing things, being bold. I mean, we've been bold in a completely different way to the early sailors, but at least we've been bold.
One of the things we write about, quite often some of the WatchGecko authors, we have specific things we're interested in. And one of the things I always write about is exploration and tactical watches and very functional tool watches. And we're constantly making reference to the intrinsic connection between the great explorers and human exploration and watches. The examples we always use are the Rolex Explorer was created because they took an oyster up Everest. The Tudor Ranger was created because they took a Tudor oyster on the Greenland expedition. Probably the most famous one is the Omega Seamaster is what it is because it was selected by NASA. These are all modern events, relatively modern events in recent history where wristwatches existed. What I'm fascinated to know more about, if you're happy to tell us, is how you integrate what exactly you were talking about there, Richard, the primitive equipment and the whole ethos of ancient exploration from a golden age into a modern dive watch. I mean, how many, Simon, you referred to drawings on a piece of paper. I mean, how many of those existed?
Well, pretty much a lot of it did exist on the actual sketches. I won't get them out for you, but no, they did. I mean, you want to see them?
If you could send us a still of one, we'd love to put it up somewhere.
Of course, I can do that. Yeah, it's it's waiting to go in our museum one day. If we're on display, if we ever get that far. No, look, the cardinal points and the Portuguese colours, the flags, the 12 o'clock marker, the Order of Christ cross, which was on the on the sails of the ship. That was all part of the sketches from day one. Richard came on board actually within 3, 4, 5 weeks. I mean, the actual cardinal points that are on the actual dial were the other way. And Richard was like, why don't we do it this way and have a look? So Richard coming on board, those are, we had the ideas went from one thing to another. So yes, the initial drawings were there, but then things started to evolve as we progressed, and they were just inspired. The inspiration, cardinal points, the fleur de lis was you would have noticed the fleur de lis in the back of the case. The fleur de lis, for example, was first used by a Portuguese cartographer, 600 years ago, 500-600 years ago, and it was another thing that we wanted to include on the actual watch and the packaging. It's if you look at the warranty card, you see the fleur de lis here.
Yeah.
So these are inspirations. That's what's inspired us really, was the 500-600 years ago of exploration, and you can see it on the watch. Pretty much anyway.
And use of bronze as well on some of the models because of the, obviously bronze was a material used widely in shipping because of its strength and ability. It was rough, but it was powerful and strong. But we've also added our own particular touches. We've taken touches from other people, so the way the bezel works is it's got ball bearings in there rather than just a metal spring to mark it off, so that it really feels solid. Again, in inspiration, that's the way that Rolex choose to do it, and you can't really get a much better example of how to make watches than the way Rolex make them. We again plagiarized the logo in the center of both the Seamaster and the Rolex of their logo, but we wanted to do it slightly differently. So our logo on the glass, you don't see it unless you know it's there, unless you breathe on it, and that's like a homage to Rolex and Omega, but our take on it. I can't tell you how much thought went into these watches in this watch really, and it went. I mean, 3-4 hours a day on Zoom, on FaceTime, just talking through details, even down to the names, with the Ocean Seacrest. The Seacrest is a registered name for us. We've also registered the Ocean Seacrest, which is going to be on our maritime watches when we develop the maritime range. The packaging, where when you open the box, there's a diver in there. It's not just because it's a diver's watch, but it's because it's a sport watch. And so the maritime range will have a different colour inside the lid, with the blue and white for the old Portuguese flag, and then a galleon. So that each range will have its own sort of unique logo, and we've kind of tried to think through everything going forward, because we really don't want to be a micro brand. We really want to be a proper brand, and we want it that we said right from the start, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly, and we're going to try for this to last 100 years. We haven't got 100 years history at the moment, but a lot of watch brands have. But we'd like to think that at some point Escudo will have 100 years or 150 years history. Hopefully still in the family.
Amazing. I just want to go back. So obviously you mentioned the bronze watch. That was one of the ones we had, the chocolate bronze. I absolutely loved it. So we've seen quite a lot of brands release bronze watches over the last month or two. Like Maurice Lacroix had one over the summer. And I was just wondering, what was your decision for using bronze, and are more watches in the future going to be bronze?
We wanted to bring out a variety of colours in with our first release. It wasn't just to bring out a black watch or a blue watch. We thought we needed to bring a variety. So we thought black was simple, blue was more modern, and the chocolate bronze was just a colour that we could not bring out, and it just suited being on a bronze bezel and crown, and it works well. It really does. And I know there was a time with bronze watches 2-3 years ago where it was a big thing, and it sort of died off again. And we thought, well, so what? I mean, we need to have a bronze one in our collection, and it just went well with our watch. Really, to be honest, it looks really tasty on that brown strap as well.
Would you want to work with bronze again, or do you think
yes,
it'd be the only
absolutely.
one?
Absolutely. Certainly for the part, there will be a bronze watch in the maritime.
Full bronze,
and a full bronze watch.
Amazing.
Simon's wearing a sample watch at the moment, aren't you?
Which is a full bronze bezel.
Oh, that's
cool.
Yeah.
With a really nice, rich, dark blue dial. Sunburst style as well.
One of the things that really works about bronze is that I went into my local dealer recently to look at a 2 or 3 year old bronze Black Bay, because I was kind of tempted, and the bronze was it had patinaed so much with the owner because they'd worn it in salt water and everything that I actually kind of didn't go for it.
Okay.
Not because I didn't like it, but because I thought, well, if I'm going to have a bronze watch that's going to end up looking like this, I want to be the guy who does the journey with it.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yes.
So that's the strength it's got over like stainless steel, which is just not doing anything basically at the end of the day. And it is really cool. One of the things I wanted to just briefly touch on as well with you was I thought your unboxing was one of the best watch journeys I've been on for a long while.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
And I can't underestimate how important that is, especially when there's a trend going down, which we all know people want to do, where they've got this environmentally friendly cardboard box that you get, and you think that's it. If you recall, you sent us a 2-watch, and there was 2 of us, 2 WatchGecko authors did the reviews on them. We did it in my kitchen because he lives locally, and we unboxed them together.
Okay.
And you go through the layer with the diver, you go through the ribbon that kind of made it look like it was a gift to someone. And you've got the color coordinated spring bar tool, the cloth, everything. And the whole holistic package is so important. And yes, that box might go on a shelf then, but that journey to a watch, it's hard to nail. And I just want to go on record to say I think you guys nailed it.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, it was again part of the long journey, but it's and it wasn't cheap to do. But at the same time, for Simon's birthday a couple of years ago, I sent him what do you call it, Borealis watch, and the watch was nice. But it was so disappointing just sort of getting it in a little box, and you open it and the watch is there. There was no drama about it. There was no theatre. It was just something and nothing. And you think that's a bit of a letdown. Even though you know full well. I mean, I actually keep all my Apple packaging. I've got Apple phones and Apple iPads and home pods and various other things. I keep all my Apple packaging because the Apple packaging is fantastic, and that was a bit of the inspiration behind it, and of course more and more. I mean, Simon's been collecting scale model cars and stuff since he was probably since he was 10, and his mother always said to him, keep the boxes, keep the packaging. It's important, you only have to go and look at Disney, Dinky toys now, and they're worth 10 times as much if they've got the packaging as they would if, exactly. So
talking to the converted here.
I know it kind of just made sense for us that. We wanted something that looked like a bit of treasure, basically.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, the original idea was where you got the sleeve and you got the world map on there. That was actually going to be paper covering the whole box, and it was going to be real wax seal rather than the plastic. But it just wasn't. It just wasn't. It was a bit messy. And we thought, okay, let's just try and keep it simple. And I think what we did in the end, it worked out really well because it is a bit of the drama. And Richard's got a nice collection of watches, and I've got a nice collection of other watches. Tudor and so forth. And I've always felt it was just the watch is amazing, but the packaging was just always boring for me. And it's you want to if you're spending that type of money. £3,000-4,000, you want to have that. I mean, I think it's a Chanel or Cartier. I think Cartier, there's a bit of drama there.
It was lovely. I mean, I bought my wife a Cartier watch in April for her 70th birthday, and we went to the Cartier shop in Lisbon, and we were royally entertained, and we had coffees and champagne, and then when and the fitting was done. I mean, it was such a beautiful experience that even though I know the watch is probably only worth about a tenth of what you pay for it, or probably less than that, but it didn't matter. It was such a nice experience, and every time I look at that watch, my wife now actually does wear it, which I'm surprised, but she wears it pretty much every day. I look at it and think, that was really worthwhile. That was, celebrating something special.
It is a joyful experience. I mean, my first Rolex I was in my early 20s. And it was a lot of money for me. Well, it's a lot of money anyway, but it was a lot. Yeah. Then it was proportionately, it was something that was very hard to attain. And the experience going and buying it, I remember I went with my best friend, and again, it involved bubbly and congratulations on getting your first Mr. Brown and all this. It's a very special experience. So can we talk a bit about the Seacrest? Because obviously, that's the watches we've had in for review. So just,
that's the only watch we've got.
Just a little exploration of a few of the unique design characteristics, shall we say, of it. Say, for example, the hand design. I mean, I assume you went through a myriad of hand designs. How did you come up with the one that you?
One of the things that actually upsets me, for example, about the Tudor.
Don't mention other brands.
about the Tudor.
Don't mention other brands.
No. I just hate the snowflake hand. For me, it's just really sloppy. There's no precision in a way about it. I understand what fun enough. Simon was showing where their idea for the snowflake hand and why it's even called the snowflake hand came from the other day. But it's still, for a precision instrument, it just doesn't do it. It's kind of there, or it's sort of vague, and that really upsets me. But so when we were doing it, because of the way our cardinal points work, we still wanted to be really sort of accurate. So as the hands go around on our hand and the second hand, they go right into the triangular bit at the back of the cardinal points, and then the main hand just lines up properly with the cardinal points, and it looks precise, it looks accurate, and that was the reasoning basically behind the hands. We did have straight sort of baton hands, but then we felt that we'd already got this sort of triangular shape going on within the watch, so it just complemented it.
I mean, of course, we can really see the inspiration of an ancient or old school navigational piece of equipment. So I just wanted to talk about the arrow points on the cardinal piece, the 4 cardinal points, and also the triangle, the loomed triangle, in a admittedly quite an odd position on the second hand. It's not. I mean, normally you get the balloon at the end, or you get it at the pointy end, or
I'll be honest with you, Richard. It was actually at the end, wasn't it, Richard? And then I was sitting there thinking to myself, that doesn't look right. It looked okay, but I thought, why don't we bring it back a bit? By I don't know.
I was very concerned. Richard was very concerned to get them into the for the hand and the second hand to line them up with the back end of the cardinal points, so it really did look as though it had been thought about.
And that's what we went with in the end. It was the right decision to do so.
I think we actually put into the review, and I remember writing it. I'm sure we wrote it in the review, and I was thinking, if this was intentional, this is great. If this wasn't intentional, God, these guys are really lucky. Because you said the arrow does fit into the tail end of the triangle fits into
That's right.
I thought this has either been done with amazing precision, or it was just, gee, that looks cool.
So I was going to say, this was 4 or 5 hours every day, banging our heads together. And we got to that point where when we were looking at the minutes, the hours and the seconds hands, we were thinking, I think we need to do something with the seconds hands. It at the time, it wasn't right. And I think we need to drop it back a bit. So it matches the hour hand. And it was the right decision. Obviously, you've picked that up.
The thing is that the indices, the 4 main indices, actually, because they were the other way around originally, you didn't quite have that sort of precision. And also, on top of that, it was, for me, all watches have the indices pointing inwards. And that's not where we're coming from. We want to be looking outwards in terms of the adventure, in terms of all that side of things. So when I suggested to Simon that we turn the indices round, it was kind of, sort of dare we, because other people, why do other people do it the way they do it? Is that sort of like industry standard? Is that the way it should be done? We're brand new to this, so are we just setting ourselves up for a fall basically? But then as soon as we turn them around, and it was then looking like the compass, which of course was a huge amount of the inspiration. It just the whole thing just fell into place, and then everything else followed suit.
Relax, we picked up on it, so it worked.
Well, yes. I think most people don't.
I was about to say that, Richard. Most people don't pick that up.
No, people don't.
And there's other things that don't get picked up, like the sapphire glass. The cross. We have to sort of warn people, say, "Hey, make sure you breathe on it, or go for a walk in early morning, or do something so it appears, or And they don't pick up on it, but when they do,
I have to come clean. We didn't either, because
exactly
the revelation for our viewers when we wrote the review. One of you gentlemen wrote in and said, "Do you think you could mention?"
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the thing is, we've been obviously to Chicago, Austin, Texas, and we've done a few watch events all around. But when we show people this, they all go, "Wow, how have you done that?" It's all, especially the Americans. The Americans love that type of stuff. But they're like, "Oh my God, how have you done that?" And get on a podcast. So we're, in the middle of an event, we're at the end of at the end of the hall doing a podcast with them, and they're going on about the hologram, effect on the sapphire glass. And there are things that people. It's one of them. You got to just make sure you tell everyone about things like this.
I've actually just written down, how's it done?
Oh well. Richard always says.
I always say I haven't the faintest idea. I really haven't. It was, as I say, we were trying to put the logo there in some shape or form, and backwards and forwards with the sapphire glass people, and they said there's a possibility we would do something like this, and we went, "Oh wow, that's it. That's absolutely it."
We didn't want to do a Rolex. We didn't want to do the Amiga, because Richard's got a 1962 Speedmaster and a little bit of acrylic glass.
Yeah, you've got the Hesselite crystal. It's got the little Omega symbol. Although if your Hesselite crystal's as scratched as mine, you can't see it very well.
Yeah, no, true.
Well, I have got the original one, but I actually did have a new one put on when I had it sort of serviced, and I kept the others safe.
I've still got my original, and I've put so much Brasso and Polywatch and stuff on it that I'm wondering now, how thin is my crystal? I'm very curious now, and I've been scribbling furiously here, is I can see how you've created the watch you've got, the Seacrest, around the ethos of the Golden Age explorers. How are you going to... how's that going to fit into a maritime watch? And can you say, you're wearing a dive watch at the moment, to all intents and purposes. What is a maritime watch then to you going to be?
GMT. Gonna have a GMT on there. If we're just going to change it up a bit, aren't we, Richard? I don't know. We can't give too much away, but there's definitely.
Tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
We just can't give too much away. To be honest with you, we can't put a time frame on it as well at the moment. So we don't want to give too much away. We certainly got the drawings there. We're happy with them. Yeah. It's just a matter of giving the green light. I think the top. Going back to what's next. I think what everyone's wanting us to do is getting a bracelet on the watch, and that's what we were originally bringing the watch out on a bracelet, and we decided not to. No, you don't think it deserves to be on a bracelet? No.
It's a personal view, that's all.
Oh, right. Well, that's Richard's view. He doesn't like bracelets. Is that right, Richard? I'm right in saying he loves his leather straps.
I've got a leather strap on my Omega. I've got a leather strap on my Tag Carrera, and I just prefer leather straps. I find them more comfortable. And in fact, one of the things we want to do, and we're going to do originally, was because of the Portuguese connection, and Portugal produces 75% of the world's cork, we were going to put it onto a cork strap. And I did buy a cork strap, and it wasn't Portuguese produced. It was Chinese, but sold in Portugal, using Portuguese cork. And, but it was the most comfortable thing I've ever worn. It was light. It was, it absolutely super.
What did it look
and
like?
I had it on
I can't even picture in my head what it would have looked like.
It's difficult. Well, it's difficult to describe it. I mean, it looks really almost like a leather strap. Slightly lighter coloured, and it's got a sort of backing to it as well. But they are. I mean, there's a watch museum in Serpa in Portugal, and they produce cork watch straps, and they're just beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and they wear much better than you ever imagine they're going to, because obviously they make cork bags, cork hats, cork shoes, and in fact our original idea was it was going to be like the packaging was going to be a cork box that looked like an old trunk where you lifted the lid up, but it was would have been all made of cork.
I think it was a Patek, but didn't they bring out a watch with a cork box as well at some stage?
Have a look at the watch museum in Serpa online and just plug in cork strap, and you'll see what they look like. I mean, they're really nice, but they're sort of obviously totally waterproof. They don't quite float because the watch itself is too heavy, but they're so comfortable to wear. It's just amazing. And that is something that will happen. I mean, our plan is, as well as to produce more watches, our plan is to also, because of Brexit and the rubbish to do with import duties and things like that, is to actually open an office here and have Escudo also assembled in Portugal as well as in the UK.
Obviously, we met at World Time, September, and we're going to British watchmakers in March. But obviously, this is going to be the first one. Here at WatchGecko, we're really excited about it because it's quite an individual event. So I just wanted your views on it, what you're looking forward to the day.
We were talking to Kat, but I think Rich was on the actual meeting with Katja, and we were thinking of maybe doing a watch just for that day. I mean, it's not too late to maybe to get something out there. You can just change it, give it a blue dial, red bezel. I don't know, change the strap slightly so it's got a bit of a UK British colour scheme going to it with it. I did ask her back in October whether it was going to be a limited edition, maybe we can put the logo on the dial. I think that was a no in a way. I wasn't sure whether anybody else was doing that, and she just said, "No, it's whether you just got a limited edition just for that day that you could maybe sell on the day." So I think we might do that. I mean, it's not hard to go ahead and do something like that, I suppose, but.
The issue we have is that all our watches are actually made to order, so we don't have stock of watches. Somebody pays for a watch, and within 10 days it's delivered to them. So we have all the parts ready. That's the second watch. That's
my Seacrest I've just ordered.
They're putting the sapphire crystal in. That's
yeah. We're always looking forward to these events because it's an opportunity for us to show people the watch in person. Because it's okay seeing pictures on the website, Instagram, and so forth, but it's when you get the watch in your hand you can really appreciate what we've tried to achieve. And everyone and when they do come to our table, everyone is always they're always like, "Oh my God." They can see the real quality and why it does retail at that price. And that was one of the things that we were scared of at the beginning, Richard, about what price point do we come in at. Because you don't want to come in at, you don't want to be competing against the Tudors or the Amigas, but you also don't want to come in too cheap because we know how much our watch costs to make.
We're around about a multiple of 3, so it's we're quite tight in terms of retailer margin, and we also want to be, rather than like most micro brands, they don't even think about retailer margins, so they don't they're all the time they're thinking about selling it online, and that's kind of it. And so by the time we'd built in a retailer margin and everything else, we're not making a great deal of money on each watch. yet. But of course, that's, we're not a known brand. So it's a question of taking a hit now in order to build a brand. And then later on, the prices will gradually creep upwards, of course, like things do every year.
It's British micro brands, and you've got all these different brands, some of which they are making the watches in the UK. But like you said, they're sourcing the materials from elsewhere. Some of them are making their own materials in the UK. So what would you say makes a British, a micro brand British?
We are a British brand, and we do assemble the watches in Britain. But of course, the parts come from all over the place, including obviously the automatic movements in Switzerland. The straps are fantastic because they come from Britain as well, handmade, bespoke basically for us. We do hear stories about people claiming to be British brands that really, there's a big grey area somewhere in the middle.
Well, I think a lot of brands have a grey area, but that's one of the things, isn't it?
It's really difficult because obviously, like every other manufacturer in the world now, they're looking at costs and how to still produce something good, but be able to still make a margin and run a business and all the rest of it. So you can't really be critical of anybody who actually sets up and makes, and has parts made or even whole watches made. I just think there's a sort of, it's like the Swiss watch sort of industry where we know that they come in and really it's just the marketing is done in Switzerland. The watches themselves are, the packaging might go on, but the packaging's made abroad as well, and that it does upset me a bit, but of course it is what it is.
We spend a lot of our time talking to brands that are fairly embryonic, like yourselves, that are right at the beginning of the journey, and we all know it's a challenge. You're trying to think, well, how many irons in the fire do I need to get my name out there? How do you stand out from that crowd? It's really hard. It's very, very hard.
Despite the fact we've only launched our watch 18 months ago, we have managed to attract several for us, very important brand ambassadors, from José Font, the Portuguese international footballer, a British racing driver, Jamie Stanley, an American actor stroke magician called Rich Manley. Yesterday we were with one of the stars of the Rugby World Cup, the Rugby Union World Cup. Rafael Storti. He's Portuguese, only 22, lovely guy, fantastic guy. And also there's a big bank in Portugal called Millennium BCP. They've got 35,000 members in their golf club, and we're their timekeeping partners, and we've done a couple of really nice events with them, obviously golf tournaments where we've presented watches as prizes. So it's and as well as doing charity, a couple of charity tournaments as well.
Well, I think that will draw a line under there. I mean, all remains for us to do from WatchGecko is to thank you both enormously for your time. Yeah. We look forward to seeing you in March, which will be great fun, actually meeting face to face. And we'll catch up hopefully really soon. Thank you again.